Hey everyone, welcome to Path to Wellness. In today's video, we have a special guest, Loren Lockman from the Tanglewood Wellness Center in Costa Rica. I'm really excited. He's been raw vegan for 31 years today, and he's been running Tanglewood Wellness Center for over almost 27 years. So thanks so much for joining us, Loren.
It's a pleasure to be here, Chris.
We're just going to get right into this. Can you tell us, tell us your story. How did you get started with a healthy lifestyle and fasting, and how and why? If you can just tell us your story on that.
Yeah, sure. It's a story you've probably heard before in different versions, but I wound up. I was a normal kid. I grew up in the U.S. I was reasonably healthy, but at 23, shortly after graduating from college, I got sick and later diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic sinusitis, systemic candida, and 57 allergies. I was sicker than anyone I knew, and I could barely function. And I spent most of the next 3 years in bed, and life was difficult. And at the time, all I knew was allopathic, i.e. conventional medicine. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. I was getting worse all the time. I changed doctors every year, hoping that I'd find someone who knew what they were talking about. I just kept getting worse and worse. And I finally realized after 3 years that they really had no idea what they were talking about, that medicine is only about suppressing symptoms. And it occurred to me that if I wanted to get my health back, I was going to have to figure out how to do it myself. So I took over. And, at the time, as I said, I didn't really know anything else. I started looking around. I learned about chiropractic. I tried chiropractic. I tried homeopathy. I tried herbs. Nothing helped me. And finally, I had begun studying nutrition at 14. So at this point, 12 years ago, I'm now 26. At this point, when I was 14, 12 years earlier. And I went back to nutrition thinking, well, I've got to find the answers there. What I realized was I was doing everything conventional nutrition said I should be doing, and I was sicker than anyone I knew. And that's when I realized that conventional nutrition, as it's taught, doesn't make a lot of sense. Too reductionist, all kinds of issues. So I started thinking about the simple fact. It occurred to me, I grew up always very close to nature, always like felt at home in nature. I started thinking about the fact that there were lots of animals. Now we know it's estimated around 25 million species, including insects, and that virtually all of them function at an amazingly high level of health and vitality. What occurred to me was they all had a species-specific diet, a natural diet. And I thought, there's got to be one for us too. It's probably not the pizza and beer I've been living on. Right? And so I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I was, shortly out of college, and those weren't the best years for my health. I started thinking about that and wound up eliminating animal products because it's obvious they don't belong in our bodies. Eliminating processed foods because it's obvious they don't belong in anyone's body. No species should be eating that crap. And ultimately, the last step, it took me another 4 years or so to realize that cooking food wasn't natural. Here I was looking for the most natural thing, and I'm still eating cooked food. And it finally occurred to me, hang on, no other species cooks their food. Maybe there's a problem there. Today, we know that there's lots of problems associated with cooking food. But at the time, I didn't realize it. Around the same time, I'm searching for answers. I'm looking for everything I can. And I came across a book called Rational Fasting by Professor Arnold Ehret. Mm-hmm. And it shocked me a little bit, but it made some sense at the same time. Here is this guy talking about people going weeks without eating. And it seemed a little crazy to me at the time. Today, 35 years later, where I've now done dozens of fasts, and have guided more than 10,000 people through fasts, averaging 26 days only water, it seems a little less crazy.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So can you, and I know you're down in Costa Rica, and can you give us some examples of what you've seen as far as people, what they've been able to heal through fasting? Any specific examples that stick out? I know there's so many of them, but
there are so many of them.
Yeah,
I'm happy to share, and I'll be happy to share as many as you'd like. We're probably going to need another several hours. But let me start, in fact, by prefacing my comments about specific cases by just reminding everyone maybe it's not a reminder, maybe they didn't know this, but we look at all these things that people do in order to try to heal, in order to try to get healthier. The bottom line is that healing and cleansing, detoxification, these are biological processes. Only the organism can cleanse or heal the organism. Nothing else can. Okay? Anything else we're doing is only suppressing symptoms. So honestly, the answer, what can you heal via fasting, is anything that can heal. It's just that it'll heal much more efficiently and much more effectively. And that includes a lot of things. We'll start with the garden variety stuff. Medicine says if you've got high blood pressure, hypertension, you're going to be on hypertensive drugs for the rest of your life, which is, by the way, shorter than if you didn't take the drugs in most cases. And yeah, what they're telling you is you can't heal from this. You're going to have this forever. We have, so far in all these years, we've had more than 700 or 800 people with hypertension, and every one of them, except one, completed their process of 4 weeks or more with me with their systolic pressure below normal, below 120. Every one of them.
Wow.
Okay? Except one. And the one was a guy in his late 70s whose starting blood pressure was 176 over, I forget what. Now, you probably know, again, it should be, medicine says 120 over 80. I don't actually agree that that's healthy. I think that's really, 120 is too high, and the difference, what I call the spread there, is too small. But that's what they say. So we took that guy from 176 over whatever it was to 126.
Wow.
Over an actual reasonable bottom number, where that difference is what it should be, because it reflects blood volume primarily. And we reduced his risk of heart attack or stroke by roughly 100%. I mean, the guy was a walking time bomb. Yeah. He was the only one who finished above 120, and he still had a miraculous shift. Same thing is true with type 2 diabetes. Medicine says you're on medication for the rest of your life. Now, a lot of people already know, no, that's not necessarily true. In fact, type 2 diabetes is over 90% correlated with obesity. So in many cases, if you can just get someone to lose the weight, their diabetes is going to be gone. We've got 100% success eliminating type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
But let's talk about stuff that's more exciting. We had a young woman fast with us, I want to say about 1.5 years ago. She had been in a car accident in California 4.5 years earlier. And she was paralyzed from the neck down. She needed full-time care. She couldn't do anything for herself. She needed an enema to be able to eliminate. Okay, no elimination, no function from here down. So she fasted with me for 30 days. She was going to do 40 days. She was living with her aunt. She was Filipino descent, and she had moved to the Philippines because it was much less expensive full-time care in the Philippines than in the U.S. And her aunt is an MD. So she moved to her aunt's house. Her aunt begrudgingly said, okay, to her fasting. But on after the 30th day, said, you got to stop, you're killing yourself, not understanding the process. And immediately put her on intravenous feeding. I don't know if you're aware of this, but IVs, which can be life-saving, they have sugar, glucose, and electrolytes, etc. But they also have all kinds of nasty chemicals. You don't really want to take the stuff if you don't have to. But her aunt forced her to take these IVs the first day, and then she was allowed to complete the refeeding process with me. By the end of the process, she was having bowel movements by herself for the first time in 4.5 years with no enemas.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
She was moving her arms and hands and having feeling in her spine. But here's the thing. Medicine says 2 years after paralysis, if there has been no healing, there is a 0% chance of healing. Impossible.
Yeah, you prove that wrong.
Yeah. Exactly. No, we see these kinds of things all the time. So, wow. I mean, there was the guy who came to me after, when he was 18, he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis with tremendous pain everywhere, was on pain medication for 24 years. He came here 42, still in pain every day. He understood. We'd been talking for several years. He wanted to finish his PhD before he came. And so he finally got his dissertation done, came to fast. He knew he had to come off the pain meds. And about a week into the process, he came to me and said, I think it was actually day 5. And he came to me and said, with tears rolling down his cheeks, he said, Loren, I've never experienced this much pain before. I don't know if I can do this. And I taught him a couple of techniques to reduce pain, held his hand emotionally, right, to get him through the process. And on about day, I want to say 15, it's now been, I think, 6.5 years. It was 6 years ago in April he was here. And I don't remember now exactly what day it was, but he came to me about 15 days in, again with tears in his eyes. But this time it was different. And he said to me, this is the first day in 24 years I've had no pain.
That's amazing. Wow.
Now, the last I talked to him, I've seen him a couple of times since because I've been in his city, in his country, on lecture tours. And the last time I spoke to him, he still was pain-free years after his process.
That's great.
The bottom line is that our bodies are self-healing and they're self-cleansing. They detoxify. The key with fasting is if it's done properly, we're simply getting out of our amazing body's way as well as we can. That's really what this is all about.
Wow. Okay, I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to start going through the questions, and then if we have any more time, you can tell us more. Tell us more examples, if that's okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Happy to.
So why do you? I know that you recommend a fast of at least 21 days for best results. Can you talk a little bit about that 21 day and why is that?
Yeah, First of all, 21 days is not the magic number. 21 is not magic. But what it is this. Just to back up a little bit, originally I worked at a college. I have a degree in finance and economics and a minor in psychology, and I worked in commercial real estate. And eventually had my own small commercial real estate firm. We brokered financing on commercial projects. I had a client who was a developer, and I financed 6 or 7 small hotels for him. So I learned something about the hotel business. And they have something called structural vacancy. If you're at Disney World, this isn't an issue. Every room is booked all the time, always, 100%. But most hotels don't maintain that level of occupancy. And if someone wants to check out on Tuesday, and the next guy who comes along doesn't want to come until Thursday, they can't fill those 2 nights. There's nothing they can do about that, really. It's called structural vacancy. I thought, I can do something about it. Okay, I can run differently. And so initially we operated like a hotel. You could come in any day and leave any day you wanted to, pay by the day. I thought, you know what? That's not going to work for me. If we're successful, we're going to need to be more organized and eliminate structural vacancy. So we began operating in 1 week periods. You can come 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 weeks, but it's Saturday to Saturday, 1 week at a time. And that, like right now, we're 100% full for almost the entire session. We have a couple of little 1 week holes where, somebody wanted to come a week later. We have a hard time. They're still Saturday to Saturday. And theoretically, if we had someone that wanted a week, we could fill it. But most of our guests are here for 4, 5, 6 weeks or more. So that's why we started doing it that way. And I backed in after years of experience when I started doing this. I had realized that if we looked at 21 days fasting, most people need about 7 days to be okay and ready to go, in my opinion. So with a 4-week stay, you can do 21 days and 7 days refeeding. We book by the week, so it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. 4 weeks gives you 21 days. Now, it takes 10 to 11 days for most people to be fully in ketosis, which means they're using fat at the highest level, right, to fuel the body. And it's important to understand the trick isn't just being in ketosis. You may be aware that there are people who promote dry fasting, fasting without drinking water. One of the things that they say is it's 3 times more powerful. And the reason they say that is because most people go into ketosis on the first day instead of the 3rd day. Okay, typically what happens is your body goes to muscle first. And first it goes to the digestive tract, then liver, glycogen, then muscle. And then when there's nothing left, no muscle left, no source of sugar left, it begins to break down fat. But it ramps up from day 3 to day 10 or 11. Anyone can verify this if they fast by simply checking their levels, their ketone level, bloodstream. So, in bloodstream, not urine. Urinary ketone levels are going to be a little bit different. But anyway, so if it takes someone 10 to 11 days, I mean, if you go into ketosis faster by dry fasting and your body is desperately trying to stay alive because it's terribly dehydrated, which is almost always the case, they're not going to get much cleansing and healing happening. But when the body is in ketosis and it's consuming primarily fat, because that's where most of the toxins are stored, if the body has the ability to detoxify and heal while in ketosis, it's going to do more when we're 100% there than when we're 50% there. So the days after days 10 or 11 are much more valuable than the days before that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what we want to do is, with the 21-day fast, someone has 10 or 11 days in that deepest part of the process. And I mean, the bottom line is, if we look at the thousands of cases, in most cases, the miraculous things that we see usually happen with fasts of 21 days or more. Now, there are exceptions. I've seen miracles happen with even a week or two here, but that's far more uncommon.
I see. And just to be very clear, you do not promote dry fasting at all. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone.
Well, that's right. I mean, here's the thing. No animal in the history of the planet has ever said to its friends, I'm going to dry fast for a week. Okay. What happens is they don't feel well. They're badly injured or they're sick, whatever it is, and they instinctively stop eating. But they never decide not to drink water. Okay. Animals, I was teaching a full day seminar in Gdansk, Poland several years ago. And I'm talking about this whole thing about water, etc., and dry fasting. And a man raises his hand. And I said, yeah. He said, Loren, I'm a large animal veterinarian. Animals all fast to heal, as you said. But when they need water, they seek water. They don't ever go through the process. They didn't decide they're not going to drink any water. They don't need water most of the time because they've all grown up eating the diet they're supposed to be eating.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, Chris, but I grew up eating dry cereal and toast and Pop-Tarts, and
they're not dehydrated like we are.
That's right. That's the point that people have to understand. If you've grown up eating a conventional diet and you still haven't removed all the mucoid plaque from your body, this is what you want. This is like a giant sponge in there. Every time you eat and drink, it's absorbing moisture from your food and drink. You never get hydrated. And so, it's interesting here. We measure people's hydration levels every day. We've been doing this now for 17 years. The most dehydrated people we see invariably are those people who've had this practice of dry fasting.
Yeah.
They get dehydrated, they never get hydrated again.
And I know some of these people like on fruitarian diets or, fruit-based diets that do a lot of dry fasting. I mean, some of them have, I don't know why, but some of these people have passed away. I don't know if you've heard of that, and I'm not sure if it's because of the dry fasting or because of something else. But
no, I guarantee you it's because of dry fasting.
Yeah.
Because what happens, your kidneys are long systems. There's two kidneys. There are these long systems of tubules, very long. All of the blood goes through there 60 times a day. It's crazy when you think about it. Never stops happening. We're constantly processing the blood through the kidneys. The kidney's job is to filter out all the toxic crap, as well as all the stuff that's in the body that the body wants, but it's there in excessive quantities. So for instance, a very simple example. Here at my place in Costa Rica, we grow and I eat a lot of papayas and mangoes and avocados and pineapples, bananas, watermelons. So watermelons, papayas, avocados, and bananas are staple foods for me. I'm eating probably one or two of these foods most days of the week, at least one of them, almost every day that I'm here. All of these foods are very high in potassium. None of these foods have any significant amount of sodium. Now, our sodium and potassium levels have to be maintained in a not balanced, like equal, but proportion to each other. But if I'm constantly taking in high levels of potassium and very little sodium, what's happening is I'm constantly excreting potassium in my urine. Constantly. Okay, my body wants to get rid of the potassium so it can maintain the excess. It can maintain that ratio that it should have. So these are the things the kidneys are doing. The problem is that we're eliminating these solid particles in a base of water. I mean, urine is actually blood plasma, which started out as water, right? Blood's 92% water. The blood gets filtered through. We're taking the excess liquid from the blood plasma, plus whatever the body wants to get rid of, and that's urine. That's what it is. If we're dehydrated, there's not enough water, we wind up scarring the kidneys. This is when we scar the kidneys, eventually they're going to shut down. Okay. That's what happened to a friend of mine, naturopathic doctor who, it's funny because about a year before he died, he published on his Facebook page, Loren Lockman is the best raw vegan teacher on the planet. But he wouldn't listen to me about dry fasting or drinking water. He would dry fast and he wasn't drinking water when he was eating. And his wife and daughter published that when he died, the autopsy determined that he died from kidney failure initially, and then everything shuts down. And it happened because of damage from chronic dehydration over several years of dry fasting and not taking enough water. I'm sure exactly the same thing has happened. There was another person who died in the last year or so who did her first fast with me many years ago. She was 50 years old. She was relatively healthy.
Can I say her name or no?
Yes.
Is it Hildy Larson?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And, like most people, she's looking for shortcuts. There aren't any shortcuts. We can't, we're not going to do better. We can't, it's not 3 times more powerful to 3 times faster. What happens is people go into ketosis because their body's looking for water. One of the byproducts of fat metabolism is perfect water. So if you're super dehydrated, your body's going to go into ketosis very quickly. But again, if it's very dehydrated, it's not putting a lot of energy into cleansing and healing. In fact, if there isn't enough water, there virtually is no cleansing and healing. Okay?
Yeah.
But because we eliminate the symptoms of cleansing and healing, which is what most people are complaining about. Most people don't complain they've got, no one's ever said, I've got low immune function and high toxicity. What they say is I've got a tumor, and that's what causes the tumor. Okay, the tumor is a symptom, it's not the problem. The problem is the toxicity and the poor immune function. And if you can cut the tumor out, you can kill it with chemotherapy and radiation. If you don't address the underlying problem, it's going to come back worse than before. And so what these people are doing by dry fasting is they're eliminating their symptoms because their body can't cleanse and heal. As soon as and they come here, we see half a dozen of these people a year. Eventually they realize, I'm still not getting all the benefit I want. Maybe I'll try Tanglewood. They come to me. We fast them. We get them hydrated because they're drinking a lot of water here. And what happens? All their symptoms come back as soon as they're hydrated. And then we actually heal them. We get rid of the symptoms because they actually are gone.
Okay, fantastic. Now, what type of water do the clients drink, or you and the clients drink at Tanglewood?
So one of the reasons I bought this particular site is because there's perfect water bubbling up out of the ground. So this is spring water. I don't believe, it's funny, I was engaged in a conversation. I did a podcast last week. The host posted a piece of it on YouTube and a piece of it on Instagram. And, some of the comments are crazy. There are these people who are insisting that I'm crazy or it's fraud. If distilled is much better. Now, personally, everything I teach and practice, Chris, is based on one very simple idea. That idea is that nature is perfect. We're never going to improve on it. Okay. Every organism on the planet has a natural diet. And part of what every organism on the planet takes in is natural water. Okay. Water from nature. In most cases, springs and streams, maybe ponds, etc. Much of this water it's part of the natural hydrological cycle. Falls as rain, which they claim is distilled. It's not really, but it falls as rain. But it goes into the earth, comes back up as part of this natural hydrological cycle. In the process of coming up, it picks up naturally occurring inorganic minerals. Okay, inorganic means rock, metallic forms. Now, can we absorb them as nutrients? No, we can't. But without having them attached, 2 things don't work very well. A, we have trouble getting the water to cross cell membranes. And B, it doesn't conduct electricity. And we run on microelectric current. This water becomes our blood. Okay, if it doesn't conduct electricity, we're going to wind up latching onto electrolytes already in the bloodstream, which we don't want to have to do. So this is one of the problems. This idea that, well, because it's more, and I understand. I mean, the planet's polluted. There are people saying, yeah, but you can't drink the water on the planet; it's polluted. Well, not everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may be hard to find, but even in California, if you go to the headwaters of the Sacramento River on Mount Shasta, you can go there and watch this water. It's gushing out of the ground at like 20 gallons a minute. It's crazy.
Wow.
There can be like 8 or 10 people there at the same time collecting water because it's coming out of a bunch of different places, just coming out of a rock, but pouring out. That water is perfect. Mm-hmm. It's coming from deep in the earth. It's been cleansed and purified through that process. And it's not pure water. It's not just H2O. But we're not meant to drink pure H2O any more than we are meant to breathe pure oxygen. Okay, breathing pure oxygen, that's a medical thing. You don't want to do that. Okay? Yeah. We're meant to breathe air. And again, 25 million other species thrive drinking the water from springs and streams, but somehow it's harmful to us. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. Okay, it makes sense. Now, do some people, when they're fasting down there, do they ever like give up because they can't handle it, or do most people make it through the fast, or how does that?
Yeah, the vast majority of people make it through the process. This might cut a little close to home. How old are you?
I'm 43.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
I would have guessed you were much younger than that.
Well, I've been trying to follow what you say to do as much as possible.
Okay, well, I'd like to take credit for that, but I doubt it's probably good genetics too. Yeah. In any case, with young guys, as a 43-year-old guy, you can probably cop to the fact that when we were young guys, we weren't all that emotionally mature. It usually takes guys longer to mature. Mm-hmm. Very young guy as a group. I mean, the only group that as a group doesn't do very well are guys 25 and under. And the reason why, I believe, is I'm encouraging people. I don't know if you've ever seen a cat or a dog or any other animal get sick enough to fast.
No, but
they'll do this instinctively. We have 7 cats here. 4 of them have fasted on their own over the last 10 years. Okay. And when an animal gets sick enough to instinctively fast, what they do is they lay down and they don't move. They may change position, but they're basically going to stay in one place. They're going to minimize their expenditure of energy. Mm-hmm. Right? They're going to rest as completely as they can. So I'm encouraging people to do that. The problem is most humans have been, every day of their lives, have been trying to avoid feeling certain emotions. Right? As soon as we get quiet and still enough, what happens? Those suppressed emotions begin bubbling up to the surface. Mm-hmm. And so I think these are the people that are just not that well equipped to deal with it. Now, we have young guys that complete their processes every session, but it's not unusual to have maybe 4 or 5 of these guys here, and one guy says, even like after a week or 2, he's gone, and then the next guy goes, and the next guy goes. It's almost like they get permission from someone else to do it first.
I see.
Everybody else completes most of the time. Let me give you some examples of exceptions. We have a woman here now. She's in her 60s. She's completely committed to this process. She desperately wants to take her health to a new level. She lives on a tropical farm, and it grows fruit and eats, close to a perfect diet. And but years of making poor choices caught up with her, and she has some things to heal, including a liver issue. Well, when the liver is healing, it's dumping bile, and bile's nasty stuff. And when it's dumped into an otherwise empty duodenum, top of the small intestine, some people are going to feel nauseous. Mm-hmm. She began vomiting. She couldn't stop vomiting. She vomited every day for about 2 weeks.
Oh,
and multiple times a day. And finally, we're paying close attention because obviously when that's happening, you are losing electrolytes and can wind up in some danger. Mm-hmm. But before that ever happened, she came to me a couple of days ago and said, "Look, I can't go anymore. I just can't handle this. It's too much." Oh, completely understandable. Yeah. So she broke her fast early and is now eating for a few days, and that happens, but it happens every once in a while. We might have, in a session like this, we have a 10-week session. We have about 32 people here now. We'll have some of them people are here, of these people are here for the whole session. Most of them are here for 6 weeks or less. So we'll have a turnover. The 10-week session will have 6 and 4, or 4 and 6, and 5 and 5, and then a few people that are doing 9 or 10. And we'll have maybe 50 people here over the course of 10 weeks, something like that. We might have 2 people that feel like they can't keep going. The rest all finish. It's a pretty high, 95, 96% complete the process they start out to do. It might be a slightly higher percentage who drop off when they work with me remotely. Yeah, you may be aware. We have people that can't get here for economic reasons or because they're single parents or whatever it is. And so for about the last 13 years, I've been guiding people remotely. And that's a harder thing to do.
Yeah, because you're not actually there. So do you recommend people experiment with fasting, maybe do 2-3 days to kind of try it out before coming down for like a 21-day plus fast, or can people just pretty much come down and jump right into it with your guidance?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do experiment. I don't necessarily recommend it, and the reason why is because those first 2 and 3 days, especially when someone's on their own, can be quite difficult for some people. And so, I think what may happen is people may do that and feel like they can't do it. We get people here all the time who tell me, I'm working with someone now who said, I fasted on my own. I never made it past 4 days. They're now on day 16. Yeah. And, they're going to finish a 21-day fast, something that they were never able to do on their own. And so I don't want people to get discouraged because it's difficult to do on your own.
I see.
Yeah. But here's the other piece of that. I mean, sort of the other half of the answer to your question. Our bodies, like every other species, are set up to fast safely as long as we do this correctly. And so there are very, very few people who really can't do this. There may be a few, but very few.
Can a type 1 diabetic fast, or is that not? Because I've heard type 1 diabetics can't fast.
Type 1 diabetics can fast. We have worked with about probably 18 or 20 of them. I've lost track. Actually, I know you're familiar with my videos, right? And the woman who's been producing them for me for the last 4+ years just left. She has a new boyfriend, decided maybe it was time to see a bit more of the world, etc. But she was on site for 4 years and producing my videos. And she's a type 1 diabetic. She first came here to fast. The guy with the arthritis I talked about, 42-year-old, they fasted at the same time 6.5 years ago. That was her first fast. But interesting story, by the way, because when your blood sugar is high, it's kind of like you're on a stimulant, right? Sugar stimulates. And so people that have very high blood sugar often have trouble gaining weight. She's 5'7", and when she got here for her first fast, she weighed 88 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Now, a lot of people, I hear from people all the time who say, like guys will say, I'm 35, I'm 6 feet tall, I only weigh 150 pounds, can I fast? Oh yeah, no problem. For 6 to 8 weeks, no problem. I mean, everyone can do at least 6 weeks. She did 21 days with no problem. Okay, so first of all, the leaner you are, the more slowly you go through your reserves. I have a naturopathic physician. By the way, the person I'm talking about last June or July completed her 4th fast with me, all 21 or 26 days. And she's a type 1 diabetic. She didn't know that until she got here. She came here 6.5 years ago. We measured blood sugar. I looked at her blood sugar and it was like 275. And I said, is it always as high? She said, I have no, it's never been measured before. So we looked at it every day and it was always 300 to 250, somewhere in that range, super high. If you don't know, blood sugar should be, medicine says between 70 and 100. I like to see it between 60 and 90. Okay, and here it was 250 to 300.
Does she still have it high like that, or?
No, I encouraged her after she left here the first time to go get tested. And, I said to her, I think you've got diabetes, type 1 diabetes. So sure enough, she went tested and she did. She's been using insulin ever since. She's been using insulin now for 5 years. But there's a test called A1C, and her last A1C, taken back in August, I think, or September, said she no longer has diabetes. Okay.
Oh.
Now, she's fasted with me 4 times with type 1 diabetes, no problem. The first time, she wasn't on insulin. She didn't even know she was diabetic. We checked her blood sugar regularly because it was so high. Now, there's a danger. I mean, going high can be problematic, but the biggest problem is if it goes too low.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes too low, you're done. If it goes too high, there's still the possibility. I mean, you're going to damage things. This is why people go blind and lose their feet, because their sugar goes too high. Damage from sugar and too much insulin. But we've fasted quite a few diabetics, and what they do is they simply check their blood sugar as usual, and they take insulin if necessary. So we don't fast people taking medications, but insulin is a hormone.
A hormone, yeah.
And if your body's not producing it, you need to take it. The same thing is true with people who have had their thyroid glands surgically removed or irradiated, destroyed with radiation. If that's the case, you're going to have to take thyroid hormones.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you don't have a thyroid, you can't produce any.
Yeah.
So, it's a hormone the body needs. So those situations are different.
Okay. Excellent. So what dietary tips do you recommend people follow before coming down for a fast?
Well, what I encourage everyone to do, I think, again, you're aware of the fact, you stated at the beginning, today actually is my anniversary, 31 years living on fruit and salad only.
I remember you started the day after Thanksgiving, now that I think about it, and today's the day after Thanksgiving.
That's right. I mean, I don't know what the date was, because I guess it varies from year to year.
Yeah.
But for me, the anniversary is the day after Thanksgiving, whatever.
Yep. I remember you saying that, yeah.
Right. So I believe that's the best that we can do. Like every other species, there's no cooking, right? We're going to eat everything raw. We're clearly completely different than animals that eat animals. And so, I think this is what appeals to us is fruit and soft, tender leaves. We have seen virtually every single person thrive. And I've worked with more than 15,000 clients, more than 10,000 fasted, and the rest just coaching clients. Everybody seems to thrive when they get their body clean. Now, some people attempt to live on fruit without getting their body clean, and they detoxify too quickly and don't do very well. But when we get the body clean, everybody seems to thrive, even with the same diet. So my recommendation is to clean up your diet as much as possible. And that means as much as possible fruit and simple green salads for at least a few weeks before coming. And what that does is a couple things. One, we're hopefully displacing some of the other garbage in the digestive tract. So even if someone's digestive tract is slow, if they wind up with a little bit of fruit and salad in there instead of a little bit of whatever else they were eating, they're going to be much better off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And typically what's going to happen is they're going to start cleansing and healing much more rapidly while eating, even before their fast, which means they'll get here, they'll sort of be starting a little further ahead, which means they'll finish further ahead.
Excellent.
Okay? So I encourage everyone to do that. The simpler, the better. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're not willing to make it 100% the way I recommend it, that's okay. The cleaner it is, the more benefits you get. Okay.
And tell us about the refeeding process at Tanglewood a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So let me tell you a brief tragic story before I do. At the end of World War II, when the Allies went into Germany and Eastern Europe and freed the Nazi concentration camps, right? There are all these people there. I mean, a lot of people that died, but there were people there that were still alive, just barely. They've been consuming a piece of bread and a bowl of watery soup every day. In some cases, almost nothing, and starving every day. Getting worse and worse. Most of them look like skeletons with a little bit of skin on them. And after they were freed, the Allies threw banquets for them. And a lot of these people sat down to these sumptuous meals just days after being freed or a week after being freed, and they died because their body couldn't handle all that coming in.
All the food.
So it's called refeeding syndrome. So I know many places where you break a fast and you sit down to a buffet and help yourself to as much as you want. That seems insane to me. I'm clear that animals break their fast. Again, I've learned everything from studying nature. And animals break their fast with relatively small amounts of food, if it's a long fast. Obviously, if it's a short fast, I can fast for a few days and then just have a regular meal and be perfectly fine. But if I'm fasting for 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to start myself by eating much less than I normally would and by increasing that every day. And here we do only whole foods. These are no juices. The exception to whole foods is coconut water, fresh out of whole coconuts. Okay, we don't do any flesh because it's high in fat and not what somebody needs when they're coming off a fast.
Yeah.
But that's it. And we're starting people like on the first 2 days. Again, we have these exceptions, but our typical clients are doing 21 days or more. And so on the first day, their only choices are coconut water, papaya, or watermelon. And it's the same thing on day 2. The difference is on the first day, our meals are only 2 hours apart. They're tiny. And so they choose one thing for the whole day. On day 2, the meals are a little further apart and they're larger, and they can alternate between those 3 things. And then as we go from into day 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, longer if it's a longer fast, they've got more options available to them. But the idea is to keep it to high water content foods. Virtually everyone is severely dehydrated. And almost everyone has pounds and pounds of old, hard material. This stuff is hard and dry. Where the body's trying to hydrate it so we can get rid of it. I had a guy today who's been here for a week. Tomorrow, he arrived last Saturday. This is his 7th day fasting. And he said to me this morning, or early this afternoon when I was doing my check with each client every day. We have a nurse on staff who takes their vital signs. We have a doctor who is often, I'm actually training her now, but she or I or the 2 of us will speak with each client every day about what's going on. So when I spoke with him today, he said, surprised, because this is his first fast, he said, I had a bowel movement today. I said, right. He said, but on day 7, I said, right. I said, my longest client fast was a young man from the UK. He was right around 28 or 29. He had stage 4 testicular cancer, and he was morbidly obese. He also had congestive heart failure. Which means not that his heart wasn't beating, it means that it was failing to keep up with the job. It was too much for it, and so it was failing. It was getting worse. It was becoming enlarged all the time. And this guy was about 5'5" or 5'6", and at least 250 pounds. I don't remember now because it's been many years. And he wound up fasting with me for 18 and a half weeks, which is 4.5 months.
That's a long fast.
Yeah, and this is just water, nothing else. Okay, no snake juice, no. You can't add anything to the water and have it still be fasting, because if your body sees calories or nutrients that it recognizes, it says there's food coming, and it kicks you out of some of the deepest part of the process. So just water, nothing else. He lost well over 100 pounds, and when he completed, they couldn't find a trace of cancer. But the reason I'm mentioning him right now is because he had a bowel movement in his last week of fasting. Okay, more than 4.5 months after his last meal, he had a bowel movement.
Wow.
Yeah,
4.5 months. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's crazy what happens. I mean, if you think about this, in an ideal situation, you'd have your last meal, 8 to 12 hours later, you'd eliminate, and your system would be empty. That would be ideal. Nothing else in there. We've never seen a single person like that.
No, yeah.
Everyone's got stuff in there.
Yeah.
There. The average transit time from here to the other end is 4 days, 8 to 12 times longer than it should be. And so most people are going to have bowel movements for the first 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, and then they're going to stop. But we've had people who've had bowel movements every single day.
Wow. And then I know quite often once they start refeeding, then quite often a lot of that old stuff comes out, right?
That's right. Assuming that they've rested enough and gotten the right amount of water. And, the water's a little tricky, because if you don't get enough, first of all, if you really don't get enough, you could put yourself in real danger. And I'll tell you a story if it's okay. I had a young man who fasted with me about 4 years ago. He'd had depression and fatigue kind of issues, and the fast was life-changing for him. It completely revived him. He became vibrant and happy and successful. And he came back to me about a year later and said, okay, I'm ready to do my second fast. I want to do this again. I know there's more stuff I can accomplish. I said, okay, great. We set it all up. This is a remote fast. So we're working via Zoom. And my remote clients, They're getting an email from me every day, pre-written emails based on where they are in the process. Now, they're welcome to write to me if they have questions or issues, but they're going to get an informational email from me every single day to help keep them motivated and inspired and educated. They're also going to get a video from me every single day. Okay, yeah. Not the stuff on YouTube. These are videos we recorded specifically for this process that are they get based on where they are in the process, right? And then there's a daily group call, and so every single day they're taking their vital signs, they're completing a shared document so I can see them, and while we're talking, I'm going over their numbers with them, telling what's explaining what's happening, what's going on, and how much water they need, etc. So anyway, this young guy says. The only right before we start, he says to me, by the way, I hope it's okay with you, but I disagree with you about how much water we need to drink. I think we need much less. I'm only going to drink when I'm thirsty. I hope that's okay. I said, I'm sorry, it's not okay. If you're not going to take coaching, you're going to put yourself in danger, and I can't guide you through the process. So refunded him his money, and he fasted on his own. He went up in a hospital for 4 months.
Wow.
With 3% kidney function.
Ooh,
because he wasn't drinking enough water. Okay, he got severely dehydrated and nearly killed himself. And he came back to me a year later. It was about a year before he had told me what had happened. And he was embarrassed and apologetic. I wish I'd listened to you. He said, I'd like to fast again with your guidance, and I promise I'll follow your coaching. And I said, okay, great. So we took him through one more fast, which he did perfectly well, no problems, no hospitalizations, perfectly fine. And about 6 weeks afterwards, he wrote to me and said, I just got tested at the hospital. I'm back to 100% kidney function.
So I guess the kidneys can regenerate then, huh?
Absolutely. They absolutely can. It's no problem.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Very few organs can't.
Yeah. So what do people do when they're fasting as far as their time and their boredom? Like, how does that work? Because do people get kind of bored just
now you've got the part of the matter. Yeah. Well, again, as I mentioned, that's what animals do. And so, if I'm seeing the same thing happening over and over again in nature, maybe there's a reason for it. Well, the reason is very simple. Cleansing and healing, detoxification, these processes all require a lot of energy. What we're attempting, the reason that fasting is so powerful is because we're liberating as much energy as we can so the body can use the energy to cleanse and heal. So like every other species, I'm encouraging people to do as little as they possibly can. Okay? Now, someone who actually tries this, I hear from people all the time, I'm bored. And we have those, we have an internet lounge because obviously some people need to be in touch with families or businesses or whatever it is. It's perfectly fine. What you don't want to do is spend any more time in there than necessary. We had a guy leave here recently who spent all of his time in there. You wanted to find him, just went to the internet lounge. He was always there. Okay. He was unwilling to spend any time with himself. Okay. And again, as I mentioned before, this is difficult for some people because suppressed emotions are going to come up. But a couple of things. First of all, if you're sitting in front of a laptop or a computer screen, it's not particularly restful. This thing is sucking the life out of us, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here 5-6 hours every single day, probably more, but because it's what I do. But I know it's not really the best thing to be doing. Okay. While you're fasting, you don't want to spend any more time in front of it than you need to. Yeah. But the other piece of it is when you keep yourself distracted, you don't do the emotional work. So, we've talked about some of the physical miracles we've seen here. I could literally keep going. If I could remember all the stories, I could go on forever. How about a woman who was in her 40s when I met her, blind since birth, legally blind. Most blind people see light and maybe some shapes, but they can't function in the world. So that's how she was when I met her. I didn't even guide her through the process because Tanglewood didn't exist at the time, but I told her about fasting and I told her about diet, and she fasted and she adopted a raw vegan diet, and a year later she was driving without glasses.
Wow.
hitting a lot of stuff. No, that's not true. It's a joke. She got 20/20 vision as a result of fasting and changing her diet. And I taught her some exercises. She wound up opening a center for African Americans. And I went there twice to teach a full day seminar. And I fasted 2 groups of blind people who did my seminar and said, I want to come fast with you. We saw every single one of them. We saw amazing things shift. Now, none of them regained the same level of sight that she did, but all of them regained amazing things. How about a woman in her 60s, 68, who had scarlet fever as a 6-year-old and lost the ability to use around 75% of her lungs as a result? She could only fill the front upper portions, the bottom, not the back. While fasting, I think around 20 days into a fast, she wakes up and she freaks out because something feels different. And then she realizes she's completely filling her lungs for the first time in 60 years.
Wow.
Our bodies are amazing. When we give them a chance to heal, they will heal. And I want to say something because I'm sure you're aware, I got lots of haters. There's lots of trolls. Lots of people say you're defrauding people. This, starving people's not helping. Remember, every species on the planet fasts when it's sick enough or badly enough injured. I'm sure, Chris, you're aware of Hippocrates, that guy in Florida. Just kidding.
Oh, but yeah.
Hippocrates, the first Western physician from Greece, said, let your food be your medicine your food. But I'll bet you don't know what his very next words were.
I do, but you go ahead and say it, because people don't.
He said, let your food be your medicine be your food, but to feed yourself when you're already sick is to feed your sickness.
Yeah,
okay, he fasted his patients. That's what people did until 112 years ago.
Yeah.
And until the first billionaire, Rockefeller, began investing in pharmaceuticals and wound up taking over the American Medical Association and completely corrupting medicine. They taught doctors fasting in medical school because medicine used to be about healing people. Today it's about selling pharmaceutical drugs and nothing else. That's all it is.
Wow. So I agree there. So why are fruit and tender leafy greens our species-specific diet? Can you talk a little bit about like how we relate to other animals and our digestion and things like that, digestive tract?
Well, sure. I mean, there's lots of ways we could look at this, but one way to start is, think about our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos. If you believe in evolution, science says there was one great ape, and from that there was evolution. And so first, I think it was the orangutan who branched off and became differentiated, became different, and then the gorilla. And then, and I may be forgetting one, but then I think there's a gibbon, I think was in there too, but somewhere. But anyway, they went off as well. Then humans branched off, and that we are equally genetically related to the chimpanzee and the bonobo. Okay, they're different from each other. They're very similar, but they have differences, and we're equally related to both of them. And their DNA is 99.6% roughly identical to ours. Their digestive tract's almost exactly the same. The biggest difference is their large intestine is proportionally longer than ours. And that's because they're forced to eat more roughage, more things that are more fibrous than we do. We don't need to eat that because we can grow whatever we want, right? They're not doing that. So over the years, there's been some evolution perhaps in our system or theirs, probably ours. Other than that, our systems are virtually identical. There are many things we can look at. Most animals on the planet make vitamin C. We don't. We don't make vitamin C. We don't need to because we're meant to eat fruit. So humans and chimpanzees and bonobos and fruit bats and various other animals that are meant to live on a fruit-based diet don't make any vitamin C because that would be a waste of energy. We can simply get the vitamin C in our diet every single day in relatively high quantities from fruits and leafy greens. Most animals on the planet don't see color. We're not the only ones that do. In addition to the fruit-eating animals, there are animals like butterflies who don't see color, and hummingbirds. who do see color, excuse me, because they need to identify which flowers are going to be better for them. And so they're attracted to certain colors of flowers more than other ones. And they need to see color to be able to determine which one's which. But most animals don't see color. We see color because one of the ways we identify ripe fruit is based on its color. Okay? And so we see color to be able to do that. We don't make uricase. Uricase is the enzyme that breaks down uric acid. Uric acid is primarily from protein consumption. It's a byproduct. We don't need to break down a lot of protein, so we don't make it uricase. Our bodies can handle alcohol. Some species don't do well with alcohol, and we don't do particularly well with alcohol either, but our liver can handle tiny amounts of alcohol. Why? Well, because in nature, fruit ferments. Sometimes you bite into a piece of fruit in nature and you find out, even in the kitchen, you find out it's fermented. We've just taken a small amount of alcohol. If the body couldn't metabolize, it's a cellular poison, but our bodies have the ability to metabolize small amounts of it. We need to be able to do that. What else? If we look at animals like carnivores, we're differentiated in that their jaws go up and down only. They rip flesh off the bone and swallow it whole. There are people who call themselves carnivores. You can call yourself anything you want. We are frugivores by physiology. I had a doctor once who said to me, we're omnivores. I said, well, how do you know that? Why do you say that? She said, because we eat everything. I said, right. Okay. So your behavior determines what you are. So if you go up onto the roof and jump off doing this, does that make you a bird? No. That's going to become painfully obvious when you hit the ground, a moment later. It's not the behavior that determines what you are. It's the physiology, right? It's the biology.
And you've been, you had like 31 years without like a day sick too, after you had all those health problems when you were younger, and you've been following this diet for that long.
Honestly, it was longer than that, more like 35 years.
35 years.
Yeah, I did actually, about a month ago, I landed in Germany at my girlfriend's place and had a fever and felt like crap for several days. And I had really been burning the candle at both ends, abusing myself. Yeah. But until then, it had been 35 years since I missed a single day of work, since I felt bad, really, at all. And I believe anyone, there's nothing special about me. I started a long time ago, but anyone can accomplish the same thing if they're willing to do what they need to do.
Yeah. Now, how do you grow your food at Tanglewood? I remember you had said something about you use part like seawater or something for the some of the micronutrients. Can you talk a little bit about that, how you grow the food?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, most of what we eat here is fruit. And I want to start by saying, Chris, we're not yet completely self-sufficient. When I got here, we had room for 5 guests. We now have room for 42, 34 fasting, 42 for things like our fruit festival. Okay. And so, we needed to build rooms. We needed to renovate the spaces we had. We had a pool that had 35. It turns out when we went to try to fix it, we had like 35 leaks in it. So we had to completely rebuild the pool. We had to landscape. it was ugly around here. It was so ugly. When I first came here, a friend brought me here to show me this place because I was looking for a place. And I took a look around and said, I could never live there. It's way too ugly. And I thought it was just, beyond fixing. And I came back, he brought me back here to see it again a month later. I was like, no, it's too ugly. I couldn't do it. And then I couldn't find anything. I came back a third time and I looked around and I thought, okay, it's going to be a lot of work, but I can fix this. And we completely rebuilt all the buildings that were here. We've added a lot more buildings. We have a beautiful yoga studio. We now have 4 different types of rooms. We have, 21 rooms in total. We have the pool. We've got several outbuildings. We've built several. We call them ranchos here. They're usually palm thatch roofed structures in the garden where you can sit, and many others. But anyway, there's a lot of work to do. So we weren't really focused initially on planting trees. We planted some at first, but we planted more really over the last 5 years. And most fruit trees take 5, 6, 7 years to begin fruiting. Some, like durian trees, I'm about to cry now, take 10 to 12 years to fruit. And that makes me very sad because we're still a long way from harvesting our own durians.
Yeah.
But most of what we're eating is fruit. And so we've planted a lot of fruit trees, a couple thousand trees, more than 200 different varieties.
Mm.
And we also grow lettuce and tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and things like that. Now, those things we grow largely under a plastic roof because some of them don't do well. Like you can't grow regular tomatoes with too much water.
Mm.
You can't grow, the lettuce doesn't get here, it gets burned in the tropical sun. It does much better under some shade cloth. And so we grow these things in a greenhouse. You know, it's not like in the US, not to keep things warm enough, but to keep them from getting too warm or from getting too much water. We can control the conditions this way. And with those things, what we're doing is we will take a gallon of seawater and we'll add it to, I mean, theoretically, we're not actually using 50-gallon barrels right this moment, but the idea is put it in a 50-gallon barrel, fill it up with 49 gallons of rain. So it's diluted, 1 to 49. And seawater contains all the minerals. All the minerals are in seawater. So if you just used seawater to water your plants, you would kill them.
Yeah.
The salt will kill them.
Yeah.
But when you dilute it this way, what happens is you get all the inorganic minerals into the soil. The beneficial soil organisms or bacteria help the plant convert those inorganic minerals into organic plant tissue. So we wind up getting all the nutrients we need from the salt water that we're diluting. And we use that primarily on those types of crops. With the fruit trees, we don't have to do that so much. I mean, it would be difficult to do. We need a lot of water that way.
Okay, I see. Okay.
They're being watered primarily by rain. I'm also a certified permaculture instructor, and so we build swales, which are systems to maintain and direct the water where you want it to go. And that means, the trees wind up with these giant bubbles of water, so they go through the dry season without needing much water. Once they're established, the first year or two can be a little rough here. We have a 5-month hard dry season where there's no rain. Okay. Once we get past the first couple of years, we don't really need to do much of anything as long as they're on the swale.
Okay. And can you tell us about Las Cascadas a little bit?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Las Cascadas is, let me back up. 30 years ago, again, I'm 31 years raw. 30 years ago, I was dating my first raw vegan girlfriend, and talking about how nice it would be. I mean, we were living in 2 different cities at the time, but we were both surrounded by people who didn't get us. Didn't understand why we were eating the way we were, and didn't understand where our brains and hearts were. And we thought, how cool would it be to create a community for like-minded people? And that was the original impetus for me to create Las Cascadas. One of the things that began happening is I began sharing this concept with people. People would say things like, especially, younger people would say, because there are older people who have gotten involved in the project who maybe have a house or a business they can sell and never have to work again because it doesn't cost so much to live here. But there are a lot of younger people that maybe don't have any real assets much. They don't have a lot of equity if they have a house, and they don't really have a lot of income. They don't have a pension, and so they would need to have an income to be able to be part of this. And they would say to me, how am I supposed to live in the middle of nowhere? You have a business there because the project is right down the road from us, but how am I supposed to live in the middle of nowhere without an income? And I thought, okay, fair enough. What if we can create something where every community member that wants to can easily create an income for themselves, easily? I thought that would be cool, and it would actually be better because it would allow us to enlarge the mission, to really educate a lot more people this way. And so what this has become, what Las Cascadas has become, is a multi-phase project with all kinds of different things going on. One, we've got the intentional community. Actually, 2 communities is what and they don't exist yet. Unfortunately, with all the nonsense that's happened over the last few years now, everything has gotten much slower in terms of moving things forward in Costa Rica. And so we haven't made as much progress as I would have hoped by now. But one of the things that's really had an impact on is obtaining capital. And we need investment capital to move this project forward. I've got already about $1.4 million in the project. I don't have any more money. And so, we're really waiting to bring some capital in. But we have the communities. There'll be a raw vegan community, and these are intentional communities. And what that means is people are coming together with the intention of living like a tribe. And you have your private home, you can live your life, but we come together regularly and we support each other because it's in our best interest. And one of the ways that you guarantee that in an intentional community like this is lots are maintained relatively small, but there's a lot of communal property. It's like a condominium where you own your unit and then you own, your percentage of the tennis court and the pool and the meeting room and the parking lot and whatever else. Here, the communal property is land and fruit trees. And in our case, 2 rivers, they're like big streams. We have waterfalls on one in the community. It's a beautiful, beautiful site. And so the goal will be to create about 200 lots in each community. And so there's the raw vegan community and the vegan community, and the lots will be no more than half the land. Much of the land, if not most of it, will actually be communal land. So you'll own your piece of it, but it's all communal. We'll create trails, we'll plant fruit trees, we'll have communal areas, we'll have communal buildings where we can come together as a group to actually, be a community, and that's the idea. But in addition to that, we've got a nature preserve, and currently we've got about 600 acres. On this land, we have the 2 highest waterfalls in Central America and about 18 more waterfalls. And so it's spectacular. And the goal here is to create a tourist attraction. Most tourists come to Costa Rica for nature, and we've got something that no one else has, the highest waterfalls. We're going to have a permaculture-based organic fruit farm where the goal, and again, in the community, we're going to plant on our land, but this will be a separate for-profit business that that grows food and gives tours of how to grow food and what we're doing there, sells trees, sells seeds, sells fruit. Mm-hmm. And the goal there is to create the largest collection of tropical fruit species on the planet. Wow. Now, even if we don't succeed in the largest collection, if we have one of the largest collections, we'll still attract a lot of tourists. And with the nature preserve right next door, it's a double whammy. Then we're going to create a world-class botanical garden because there are amazing plants in Costa Rica that aren't fruit-bearing plants, and we want to show people how spectacular that is as well. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to have adventure sports. So there'll be a mountain bike park, there'll be BMX biking, there'll be zip lines, there'll be rock climbing, there'll be as many things as we can bring together. And in the heart of all that, a tourist will pull in, they'll into a parking lot, they'll go into this little commercial village we're going to create where there'll be shops and boutiques and eateries and art galleries and a spa and etc. And these businesses, each of these businesses, and they have to go in there because that's where they get their tickets to go to wherever they're going. Okay, if they're going to the permaculture farm, there's a vehicle that will pick them up at a point inside that community, inside that part of it. If they're going into the nature preserve, they get their ticket there. There's going to be access right from the community into the nature preserve because it's right on the edge of it. Or if they want to, they can drive around the other side. There's access points from various places because this is a big area. It's very large. If they're going to the botanical garden is high, about maybe 100 meters up above the top of the waterfalls. And so there'll be a hike someone could take to get up there, but it's going to be pretty steep and pretty far for some people. So we'll have a shuttle. We'll shuttle people back and forth from the commercial village. And while they're waiting for the shuttle, they're looking around. They're hopefully, these are tourists who come to Costa Rica with money in their pocket and looking for things to do. And we're going to provide them with lots of cool options. Everything is going to be as environmentally sound as possible. So boutiques will sell clothes. Everything I'm wearing is 100% organic. Cotton, hemp, etc. Fibers that aren't harmful to the planet because cotton uses about 20% of the planet's pesticides. And if you're buying cotton stuff that's not organic, unfortunately, you're contributing to the destruction of the planet. Everything we're going to have recycled paper. Everything we do is going to be as environmental as possible. All of the eateries will be organic, raw vegan.
Wow. That
And it
just
will.
sounds amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think it will be. You're a health coach, am I right?
Yeah, so, sort of getting into that a little bit, but
Okay. So,
and I refer people to you.
well, thank you. Thank you. I hope you're in our referral program. You can actually sign up as an affiliate and use your own code and get paid.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway, um, or earn your own fast if you
Yeah.
prefer.
Yeah.
Twice the rate. So, imagine living in a community where everyone like gets you, and we're all living the same choices, and we're creating this amazing thing together. That's what we're up to.
That's amazing.
We believe that within 10 years we will be one of the top 5 tourist destinations in Costa Rica because there's nothing like it in the world.
Yeah.
And again, tourists are already coming for nature. We've got amazing nature. Okay, that's the idea. So all of those retail businesses will be owned by community members. Okay, so you want to run an art gallery or juice bar or a little raw vegan restaurant or a boutique, whatever. Maybe you're into mountain biking. Someone's going to run the mountain bike park. It's not going to be me. It's going to be one of our community members.
Yeah.
Someone's going to run the rock climbing piece. All these different things that we've got going on. These community members that need or want to have an income will have an opportunity to get involved and either run the business as an associate or have their own, like, again, the smaller shops and so forth. Those are retail businesses. Will the association that's building this whole thing, mostly it's the investors that put the money up, will build it, and that'll be a business run, that's by the association, but will be leasing space for all these community members that want to run their own businesses. And I really believe we can bring in hundreds of thousands of people a year, and any community member can make a very nice living.
And how far away is Tanglewood from Las Cascadas? Is it pretty close?
It's about a mile.
Oh, okay, it's really close. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, there is one farm. It's a mile if you go on a road, but there's one farm between Tanglewood and land we already own in the project. And if we can buy that big farm at some point down the road, we could create a trail where you'd have to cross one road, but you could actually walk from here to there into the project.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Now, do you have any plans to open like multiple Tanglewood wellness centers throughout the world, or is it just going to be there in Costa Rica?
No, I do. I do have those plans. I made a classic mistake that people make. I'm probably not the best businessman in the world because, this wasn't set up. I mean, if you want to run a business, like an intelligent business, you set up a business with an exit plan. You build something and then you sell it after 5 years. That's what most people do, 10 years. That's the plan. Here I am 27 years in. I don't take a salary from Tanglewood. I get paid from some other activities, but Tanglewood pays a lot of people, but not me. And I'm not complaining. I mean, they house and feed me, and I have a car that's owned by the company. The company flies me to various locations where I speak, etc. And it's, I get to see the world, and it's amazing. And I'm living the life of my dreams. But I'm 61 years old and don't have any money, and so at some point I'm going to need to make a little bit of money, right? Well, the plan now is, okay, I can't keep doing this forever. I'm training a doctor now. I have a couple other doctors that are interested in coming to work with us. Eventually, we'll probably have at least 2 on site. I'll hire a manager and teach them how to manage the business. And then I can step out and focus on Las Cascadas. And this will still be run based on my principles, based on my philosophy, based on all my experience. We're going to start publishing, hopefully, case studies, which are the simplest form of study. We'll publish, hopefully in the next year, we'll start publishing those. Because there's so much information we already have, so much data we want to share with people to show them what's actually happening. So few people really understand the process. But once we've created something here that truly runs without me, watching it all the time, then we can replicate that. And that's the goal. So there will eventually be one in Asia. There'll be one somewhere in Europe. There'll be one, maybe South America is harder because, I mean, it's expensive to do what we do, and there's not much money down there. But there'll be at least 2 more and maybe 3 or 4 more locations somewhere in the world, within the next 5 to 10 years. That's the plan.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's, we've 26 or 27 years ago, I tried advertising in a magazine twice, and we never really got anything from it. And that's it. I've never spent another penny on advertising or marketing. Yeah. And we stay full all the time. This session, we have a whole bunch of people who are here returning for their second, third, fourth. I have 3 people here for their 5th fast with me. Wow. We have probably 16 or 18 people here this session out of 50 who were referred by a client who's already here.
Wow.
And the rest, I mean, maybe that's about half. The other half are people who found me on YouTube, or someone told they heard about us somehow, Instagram, whatever it is. I imagine that if we market this and actually do it properly, we could probably have even more. Again, we're completely full now. We have no empty space. That's always the case. But we could probably do the same thing all the time, not 35 or 36 weeks a year, but maybe 48 weeks a year with 4 weeks for break. We could probably do that. And the goal is to figure out how to market it properly and keep Tanglewood full here, keep one full in 2 or 3 other locations with just the local market. I mean, our local market includes North America. You may be aware of this, but we're closer to Miami than New York is. It's relatively easy for most people to get here from North America. And so that's really our primary market for this location. Whereas, in Europe, there'll be a place where people can spend, 2, 3, 4 hours traveling and be there instead of traveling, 16 hours. It'll be a lot easier for people.
Yeah. And I'm going to link all of your contact info and your social media in the description box. So everyone make sure everyone go down and fast at Tanglewood.
Well, I'll make, if it's okay with you, I'll share something. I don't know how quickly this will go up, but we've never done this before. Because our guests are usually here 4, 5, 6 weeks or longer, sometimes what happens is we wind up with these little holes we can't fill. At the end, this is a 10-week session. At the end, the 10th week of the session, we currently have maybe 10 open beds. We don't have any other open beds all the last week. And we don't really have a lot of people booking for a week. So I decided this morning, I do a live broadcast every Friday morning. And this morning I thought, you know what? I'm going to let people know we'll give them 25% off for this 1 week only. Can't be for any other time. It's if they come from January 7th to January 14th and book it now and pay in full, they can save 20%. They're going to have to tell me so we can send them an invoice, because there's no way we don't have any other way to do that discount. But it's an opportunity for someone, maybe they're not sure, they want to get their feet wet first, want to check it out, they want to see what it feels like here. Hey, you can come for a week, fast for 5 days, refeed for 2. It's pretty low risk, and you're going to be doing it in this amazing paradise, and you're going to save 25% off our normal rate.
Fantastic.
So,
yeah. I'll get this video up either today or tomorrow. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You're way more efficient than I am.
Oh, I'm getting as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Get the word out as quickly as possible. So I didn't really have too many other questions. So I don't know if you have any more time left, if you wanted anything else you wanted to say, or if you wanted to mention any other cases you had or clients.
Sure. I could literally keep going with cases forever. I'll share a couple with you. I was asked today whether we'd ever work with epilepsy. We had a woman here, I want to say 1.5 years ago, she's in her mid-30s. She was diagnosed with epilepsy as a small child. She had already weaned, by improving her diet, she weaned way down on medication, but was still taking it. And I told her, you can't fast while taking it. So she stopped taking it, and she fasted with me, and she would get these brain scans. I'm not sure if they were every year, every couple of years, but this brain scan to show whether there's still epilepsy or not, right? This seizure activity, it's electrical activity, it's not controlled very well. And she had a brain scan after fasting for 21 days. For the first time in her life, no epilepsy.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see, what else? I mean, so many crazy things. I'll come back to to more cases if I have time, if I think of any. But I do want to say something that I think it's important for people to understand. We live in a crazy world, crazy times, crazier than ever. If you made the mistake of letting them stick crap in you that you shouldn't have.
Not me. Yeah,
No,
other people.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people out there who did.
Yeah, of course.
If you made that mistake, you want to understand just how serious this is, and it's going to get worse. And the very best thing that you can do is to fast long enough to allow your body to get rid of as much of this garbage as possible. It's crazy what happens.
No, now just so people know, it has to do with something sharp in your arm.
Right, exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm not sure.
Don't even say the word.
Yeah, we still probably can't say certain words here, but no matter what it is. In fact, those people, they really need something. But honestly, I don't know anybody who wouldn't benefit. If you've been alive on planet Earth for 10 or more years, and that's probably most of your listeners, you've got a bunch of crap in your body.
Oh, because yeah. I know I do.
The air's polluted, the water's polluted. If you grow up eating conventional food, that's all crap. If you ever took drugs into your body, all drugs are toxic to the body, and the body stores a lot of this stuff for a long time. And so, the message I want to give people, most people that I know, by the time they're 40 or 50, they don't feel normally as good as they used to. Okay, even by the time people are 20 and 30 these days, they don't feel as good as they used to. And a lot of people think this is just how it is. And I want people to know you can feel and function better than you ever have if you're willing to give your body a chance to really cleanse and heal and get hydrated as a result. You have to cleanse and heal first. Then we can get hydrated. It's amazing how well the body works. It's amazing what happens. And so, I don't want anyone to think, well, this is just how it is. I'm never going to feel good. Hey, do what you need to do to make it possible to get yourself here, or work with me remotely, and I will guarantee you that you will feel and function much better than you have in one or more decades. For some people, better than you ever have. That's what's possible.
And it's never too late, right? I mean, you've worked with people how old before?
Well, our oldest client turned 91 while fasting for 30 days and he had stage 4 cancer. When he was done, they couldn't find a tumor.
Yep.
Okay, that's what happens. My joke around this is when I'm talking to a group, I'll tell people, this doesn't work for everyone. If you're sitting here tonight and you're already dead, this isn't going to help you.
Yeah, if you're breathing.
If you're still breathing, your body can probably cleanse and heal, and to some degree, take you to a higher level. We work with people sometimes. Some of the things I see amaze me. I got a letter from a couple young men a few years ago, 5 years ago, and they said, Loren, our parents and I watch all your videos. We're big fans, but we've never actually done anything. We haven't changed our diet. We haven't fasted, but we agree with you. Believe what you say. Last week, our dad was diagnosed with cancer, with a tumor, and he was given several weeks to live. It was late stage. You may be aware of this, Chris, but your liver is the largest organ in the abdomen. It starts here under the right rib cage and comes all the way across the abdomen. It's pretty big. He had a tumor in his liver that was bigger than his liver.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, honestly, it's like, how do you not feel that until it gets to that size? Now, the liver has no nerves, but when you've got something bigger than the liver growing on the liver, you'd think it'd be pressing on other things, right? There'd be pressure. And finally, what happened was he had discomfort, pain. He went to the doctor. They found this giant thing growing in there and said, we can't, it's too big. We can't operate. We can't get rid of this. This is going to kill you soon. And so they contacted me and said, can fasting help him? And my response was, I don't know. This is a difficult situation. It's entirely possible that it's going to be too late to save his life, but he's in a lot of pain right now. And, what if he could simply feel better for the rest of his life and maybe live longer? They said, okay, sure. So I guided him through remote fast. And sure enough, within 3 or 4 days, he felt much better than before, much less pressure, much less pain. He did wind up passing away about 6 weeks later. but he felt a lot more comfortable during the process. And so, even someone who it's too late, you can still enjoy life more than you're currently enjoying. I mean, situations like that, it's difficult to travel. I'm actually working with a young man now who doesn't speak English. His father's translating every day. He was diagnosed, he's 14. He had a brain tumor removed from his brain. And the prognosis wasn't very good. They said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I mean, I did have a client a few years ago who had the exact same diagnosis, a woman whose sister and mother both had the same tumor, got medical treatment, and died as a result of it. Her doctor said to her, "You need this treatment." She said, "Both my sister and mother died with the treatment that you're offering me. I think I'll try fasting instead." Okay, she was given months to live. She fasted with me about 5 years ago. She is still alive today. Perfect.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, medicine has a lot of limitations. Even when they mean the very best, that they can do, all they have is their own experience with toxic substances and dangerous procedures. And our bodies are self-healing. So, for me, the very first thing I do is fast, no matter what happens. If I injure myself in any way, I fast.
Yeah, I can't wait to come down there. I will be in the future to come down to do a 21-day fast with you. So how long do you think, much longer do you think you're going to actually be there doing what you do? Because you say in the future you're going to sort of branch off. And
yes, that is the plan. I mean, I'll probably be around for a while, but still living on site. I may or may not be here all the time as we begin to move. We're probably still at least a few years away from the next location. Although I do have a client who said, "I've got a Greek island." I'm not a Greek island. I've got land on a Greek island. Would you be interested in building something there? I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." I'm thinking maybe this spring I'll go check it out. It's hard to say. I'll probably be here for the next year. My advice to you, though, is the sooner you get here, the sooner you're going to feel better than you ever have.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. It's been great.
It's a pleasure, Chris.
Oh, this is just an incredible interview. So.
It's a pleasure. If you want to make it happen again, I'm sure there's lots more we could talk about.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, thank you, and we'll definitely be in touch.
I look forward to it.
All right, thanks.